Hey guys, Tyler here. In previous videos, I've discussed the biology of the genetically engineered Metroids from the franchise of the same name, as well as the biology, history, and culture of their creators, the bird-like Chozo. In this video, I'd like to take a look at another notorious enemy Samus Aran encounters throughout the games, the X Parasites. The second most dangerous life form right behind the Metroids themselves, the X reproduce very quickly, adapt and thrive in virtually any environment, can mimic just about any biological organism, and even exhibit signs of intelligence. Today I'm joined by my friend and fellow YouTuber Phobia as we both dive into the science behind this insidious species. In their most basic form, X Parasites exist as an airborne gelatinous organism roughly the size of a basketball. They have three particle-like structures that circulate within their mass, much like electrons in an atom. Their gelatinous form allows them to slip through the tiniest of openings, much like an Earth octopus, and they are unable to be harmed by most standard projectiles. They can, however, be contained using the vacuum of a power bomb. The X are also capable of mimicking bioorganic technology, such as Samus's power suit, as seen with the SA-X in Metroid Fusion. They can even interface with technology in order to download data, such as with the Barrier Core X in Fusion. This means that the X are still able to transmit information via electrical signals across a neural network, distributed throughout their entire bodies, another similarity to the octopus, whose 8 arms function much like secondary brains. The X are incapable, however, of infecting fully inorganic creatures such as Emmys or robot Chozo soldiers, also known as Chorizo. As far as their reproduction, as I mentioned earlier, the X reproduce rapidly, and they do so asexually. Asexual reproduction is rather common on Earth. It is the primary form of reproduction for single-celled organisms like bacteria and archaea, and even many plants, animals, and fungi reproduce this way as well. Asexual reproduction does not involve the fusion of gametes or a change in the number of chromosomes, and indeed, it is in some ways more efficient than sexual reproduction. The evolution of sexual reproduction is actually considered somewhat paradoxical in the field of evolutionary biology, because an organism that reproduces sexually can only pass 50% of its own genes onto its offspring. This means that sexual reproduction intrinsically inhibits population growth, though one of the definitive advantages is that the mixing of genes impedes the accumulation of harmful mutations. With asexual reproduction, every young offspring can bear its own young, a phenomenon also observed with, for example, tribbles in the Star Trek universe, many of which are born pregnant. Thus, as the X absorb genetic traits they like and reject ones they don't, they get all the advantages of both methods at the same time. They are essentially perfect life forms. The X Parasites' reproduction method is also tied directly to, well, their parasitism. We all know about parasites. They're organisms that often latch onto larger ones and steal nutrients and other resources, solely benefiting themselves while harming the host. The X generally infect their prey's nervous system and start replicating at an exponential rate, consuming the host's soft tissue in seconds. They can absorb the DNA and memories of their victim, even if the victim is dead. This type of DNA transfer is also not too alien, believe it or not. While all prokaryotes, single-celled organisms that lack a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles, reproduce without the formation and fusion of gametes, other mechanisms for lateral gene transfer can be likened to the genetic recombination that occurs during the process of meiosis in sexual reproduction. Types of lateral gene transfer include conjugation, the transfer of genetic material by direct cell-to-cell contact, and transformation, the alteration of a cell by incorporating genetic material from its surroundings through cell membranes. There's also transduction, the introduction of foreign DNA to a cell by a virus, but the former two types of lateral gene transfer are more in line with the X Parasites' methods of mutation. The X can not only alter their genetic structure by stealing DNA from their victims, but they can also combine information from previous hosts to produce new forms more suited for combat. The X may take their time hunting potential prey and even sometimes ignore potential prey if they think they have nothing to gain, such as the SA-X allying with Samus at the end of Fusion to defeat the Omega Metroid. This type of strategizing is at least somewhat indicative of some level of intelligence, and in fact, in Dread, we find out that X-infected biological organisms capable of speech before their infection retain this ability. This is demonstrated when the Chozo Quiet Robe says, "I am counting on you," after being reanimated. We also know that the X appear to share a hive mind of sorts, or at least devotion to the welfare of their species, even going so far as to self-sacrifice to triumph over adversaries. We see this in Fusion as one X attempts to overheat the station housing the biologic space laboratories, which would kill not only Samus, but the other X on the station. Adam speculates that the parasites must have felt Samus was a threat to their entire species on SR-388, and the sacrifice of the X on board the BSL would spare their brethren on the planet. Furthermore, in Dread, Quiet Robe's X copy seemingly helps Samus control her Metroid transformation, and for seemingly no benefit to the X species, allowing her to escape the disintegration of ZDR. While not totally analogous to a hive mind, swarm intelligence, the collective behavior of decentralized, self-organized systems, is present in colonies of social insects on Earth, such as ants, bees, and termites. Earth insects make up the highest percentage of animal biomass on land, far exceeding that of humans, and under some definitions would be considered the dominant life form on our planet. This has no doubt contributed, at least in part, to the popularity of insect-like aliens in science fiction, along with the fact that they look, well, freaky to begin with. The collective consciousness of insect populations has also given rise to speculation that they could have developed true intelligence if the tape of evolution had been run differently, as they already alter their environments to an appreciable degree. And while X Parasites only have a few traits in common with insects, a similar concern, the threat they'd pose as a galactic plague if they gained spaceflight, has made their eradication the highest priority.
So, where do these things come from? All we know for sure is that they are naturally evolving creatures in the universe of Metroid. All of the X that we see in-game originally evolved beneath the surface of planet SR-388, and according to Samus Returns, were only discovered after Chozo colonists started mining the planet for Aeon energy. After many Chozo were killed by contact with X, the Chozo created Metroids to be an immune predator and keep them at bay. Which, in retrospect, may sound like an overreaction, but keep in mind, Fusion stresses that X infection is fatal to the host 100% of the time, and Samus Returns tells us that the first Metroids were docile and friendly to their Chozo masters, so I don't think it was a bad call at the time. The admittedly non-canon Metroid prequel manga even states that the Chozo refrained from informing the Galactic Federation of the X Parasites because they were afraid humanity would seek to exploit the X as a weapon, which of course is exactly what happens in Metroid Fusion when the X infest biologic space labs. Most of what we know about the X Parasites comes directly from Fusion, which was the first Metroid game to include them in terms of release order. The player learns of their existence at the same time the Galactic Federation does. That is, when Samus contracts an X infection herself while escorting a team of BSL scientists on SR-388. As Samus falls into critical condition, Federation scientists develop an emergency X vaccine using a cell culture from the last remaining infant Metroid. You know, the one that caused an entire planet to blow up in Super. As a side effect, Samus's genetic makeup now includes Metroid DNA, allowing her to safely absorb X, making her especially vulnerable to cold temperatures, just like the Metroid species. A few of the X that have been within Samus's power suit survive, and having copied her knowledge and memories, are able to regenerate and operate it at full power, creating a hyper-weaponized, hyper-intelligent alien foil to Samus herself, referred to as simply the Samus Aran X, which is infinitely cooler and more threatening than Dark Samus, and I've been trying to tell Nintendo that they put the wrong one in Smash Bros, but no one will listen, and if one more person tries to tell me that just because the Metroid Prime trilogy was good and fun and relevant. Being the only human with immunity, she is immediately sent by the Federation to investigate a distress signal from the BSL station, which is being slowly overrun by X. Once she discovers that the X have eradicated all life on the station, she sends it on an impact course with SR-388, destroying the station and the near-invincible SAX in the process. The only other game that gives us notable X Parasite lore is Metroid Dread, Fusion's direct sequel. In it, we learn that one of the Chozo from the Mimicking tribe was infected by X during an expedition to SR-388 and brought the parasite to the Chozo colony on planet ZDR when he or she returned. Though Ravenbeak somehow manages to contain the X on ZDR within Sector Elune, he purposefully releases them after Samus discovers them for herself. The X then quickly spread across ZDR and infect all of its organic life, in perfect parallel to the events of Fusion. Samus eventually defeats Ravenbeak after he himself becomes infected, triggering a countdown timer before the planet self-destructs. I mean, what'd you expect? It's a Metroid game. Samus escapes the planet just before it blows, resulting in the final extinction of the X species. Or so we think.
The X Parasites are, in my view, a fascinating alien creature design. Not only are they the second most dangerous life form known to Federation science, behind the Metroids designed to destroy them, but their level of mimicry is virtually unparalleled in science fiction. Well, maybe by the changelings from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The X's legacy is actually far more complex than players might initially suspect, as they don't just use blunt force to strike at their prey. They use precision and even possess some level of intelligence and even signs of gratitude towards Samus for helping eliminate the Metroids. They don't just have a unique biology, but they also possess a social structure geared towards the survival of their species. Indeed, they are one of the most intriguing aliens in sci-fi. They can be anything, anywhere, using a more advanced form of genetic mutation processes we can witness on Earth. Scary stuff. If you want to learn more about Metroid Fusion's gameplay mechanics, be sure to check out Phobia's video about glitches you can do in Metroid Fusion, link in the description, and check out his other videos as well. Big thanks for his contributions to the script. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below and don't forget to share it. That stuff really helps me out. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that as well so you won't miss future uploads, and click the bell icon to receive all notifications. If you want to support my work even further, becoming a patron or a member is a great way to do so. Links to those, as well as my social media and merch store, are in the description. That's all I have for this week. I'll see you next time.